Sophie, it's so great to meet you. Almost in person, I guess. Um, you've had a really, really interesting entrepreneurial journey. Can you talk about how that has evolved?
Sure. So I didn't really see myself as an entrepreneur, I guess. I somehow kind of stumbled upon, I was gardening for a couple years by myself after kind of falling in love with it. And then my boyfriend and some other family members were like, oh, you should just start, you should start it as a business and do subscriptions. And so I kind of just decided to do it. And again, I didn't really see myself as an entrepreneur doing that. So that was last summer that I first started. This is my second season growing. So what I offer at Rising Roots Farm is this summer basically we're doing the farmers market, and then we sell through salad subscriptions, and then we also sell to some restaurants, and then we just started doing some events on the farm. But I can't say that it was, I don't know, it just kind of happened. I'm sure everybody says that, but I just kind of feel like I stumbled upon it.
You had a journey to farming, though, didn't you? You actually worked on someone
Yeah.
else's farm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I got interested. Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. So I went to University of Ottawa for a program called Conflict Studies in Human Rights.
Mm.
So that program was very much based on social issues, war studies, history, and so it's not very solutions based. Obviously, like undergrads, mostly you're just looking at the issues. And so with that, I started getting pretty, just feeling a little hopeless and just feeling like I couldn't see any solutions. It just kind of felt like I was learning about like issue after issue, and there was not really a way to solve any of the issues. So after leaving university, or as I was leaving university, I really wanted to have kind of hands-on experience. And I, after school, decided to go to do this workaway program, which is basically where you stay with a family and work for them, and they give you a free place to stay and feed you. So I went to Australia and I stayed with a family there, and it was absolutely life changing, amazing. And they were living off the grid. They were getting their water from a river kind of down the hill. They were making 80% of their food. They were building like green building techniques house. It was totally made out of rammed earth. It was amazing, and they were so positive and just kind of positive about the future. And they made me kind of fall in love with growing food and kind of living that way, I guess. And so I kind of went from this hopeless place to a very hopeful place and hopeful people. So it was really healing for me, and that just kind of made me fall in love with it even more. So after that, I came home, had a little garden, and then I just kind of realized I want to do more of that, and I missed staying on the farm with them, and I missed growing food for other people and sharing it with other people. So that's kind of how Rising Roots started, again, with kind of a push from friends and family, and just also having the benefit of my boyfriend's family farm, just having the space to grow. And that's kind of how I got there. I tried to keep it as brief as possible.
It's a really interesting and fascinating story, I think, and you don't have to shorten that. I think it's really amazing. One thing that you do, and I wasn't aware of what this means, is
Mhm.
community supported agriculture. Can you talk about what that is?
Sure. So this has been going on for a long time, as far as I know. A lot of small scale farmers do this, so that's kind of where I got the idea from. And so the idea is people usually shorten it to CSA. So if I say that, that's what it stands for, Community Supported Agriculture. So the idea with that is people or your community can support the farm by buying shares. That's the idea. So they pay ahead of time for either, the 16-week season or for the summer, or however, the farmer decides to do it. So they pay up front so that the farmer can account for their seeds, account for compost, fertilizer, that kind of stuff. Because farming, there's a lot of upfront costs. So with that, it's it's community supported because they're purchasing shares ahead of time and investing in the farm so that food can be grown, and then they're able to kind of benefit from the farm through the whole season because they've already put that credit toward the farm. So throughout the whole summer or the season, then if one week the farmer, let's say that like this season was really dry, so some farmers had a really big problem with growing their crops just because it was drought season. And so with that, so that credit or that kind of investing in your farmer makes it so that if one week they have a lot of crops, then our community or the people who signed on will get a lot of crops, and if another week something kind of failed or didn't work out, then they're able to kind of balance that throughout the season. So it's a really cool way of creating community around food and also kind of acknowledging that food isn't just like a steady source. There's always complications, and it's not. The grocery store makes us feel like it's really easy to get food, but food is hard work. So it's kind of a cool way to have a better connection to your food, better connection to community, and to get to know your farmer.
And does that now I know this might be a silly question, but does that mean that people that buy shares, do they have the option to come and farm also? Like, can they come to the farm and do some of like pitch in and do some of the work too, or does it work that way?
Right. So I don't have it that way just because I'm not quite set up for that. But I know some farmers do have it that way, and I think it's a really interesting way because, in the summer a lot of farmers, more hands is better any day of the week. So I'm sure that a lot of farmers appreciate that, and I do know a couple around Oxford County that have that option. They have volunteer days for weeding or anything like that, and that's another way that kind of builds connection with food, with your farmer. Again, all those things I listed. So I don't have that option. I mean, I would love to have more people come help me. But yeah, no, it can be part of it, but I wouldn't say that it's like a must have for the program.
You have mentioned that you've been in business for a year, and I think this is your second season, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so, how have things grown? You have branched out into a lot of different things. Can you talk about how that's happened and what has happened?
Yeah, sure. So last season, pretty much the only way that I sold my food, or the main ways that I sold my food, was through the Woodstock Farmers Market, and then through subscriptions. So last year I did about 17 subscribers, and then all that work, I didn't really have people come to the farm. And I realized at the end of the season, I was really burnt out at the end of the season because I was alone. I did it alone last year, and so it was a lot of work and my body was broken, and I was missing something. And I think at the end of the season, I just realized like I'm missing people coming here and sharing it with them, because that's the experience that I got when I lived with that family. It was very like communal, and you were constantly sharing and working together. And so having a whole summer growing all this food, I still was sharing it with people, but I was just dropping it off at their door. You know what I mean? So it was a very different experience, and I realized at the end of last summer, I really want people to come here and I want to share it with them. So then this past winter, I had the whole winter to kind of plan and refigure out how I was going to make that happen, because you kind of have to plan and design, a space for people to come to. And it was not designed for that last year. So, this past winter, getting ready for this summer, I decided that I would have a big flower garden. So that's new this year. So the flower garden was my way to kind of create the space, like a really beautiful space for people to come. And that's kind of where I hosted my events this summer. So the events I had were like paint nights. I had different hosts come. I am not a painter, so definitely having hosts come to do that one. So paint nights, and then build a bouquet nights. So with that, we get to eat some vegetables from the food from the field, and share drinks, and kind of build community that way while doing something fun, and then getting people to come to the farm. And so that's kind of what I did this summer there, and that was me stemming out that was different than last year, but I really, really liked doing those this year. And I served for, like, I was a waitress for a couple years, and I really liked it. I'm a people person, so I love having the people come, and I love kind of sharing just like how much joy and how much hope having a small farm and growing food, growing flowers, and working outside gives me. I love sharing that with other people. So I think that that's kind of my new favorite route. I'm interested to see where I go with that because I have ideas for the future. But other than that, yeah, I had a few more subscribers this year. I did about 20 to 25 instead of the 17. And then I grew kind of the events side of things, and then farmers market every weekend. And then I've also done a bit more selling to restaurants this summer too.
That's exciting. Being in people's restaurants is a big deal. Yeah, like
Mhm.
that's sales. You're doing that yourself. You're going to them and saying, like, do you have somebody, a supplier, and do you want local? Like that's a big stretch for somebody who's working on the farm. So, as an entrepreneur, which you are, uh, what do you wish somebody would have told you before you started on your own?
I wish, I feel like people talked about this and it was known in my life, but I feel like I didn't really fully process. Like, you are going to do everything, you're in charge of everything. Again, I feel like I kind of like jumped into it and then realized, oh yeah, I guess I'm an entrepreneur now. But I feel like I've kind of always grown up with the attitude, like, you know, if you if you need to make a sale, for instance, like, you work hard to make it. I feel like I've always kind of had that attitude, like, if you need another job, then you get another job, kind of thing. And so I feel like I've just kind of like transitioned into being an entrepreneur that way, and just kind of, working. If I need more work or I need more subscribers or whatever, then I just kind of work towards that, and just apply that attitude, I guess, to that. But I think I would tell myself, you're going to be really tired and it's nonstop, and you're going to need help from a lot of people, because I think I thought that I could do it all on my own, but I can't. So I think that that's what I would have told myself for sure.
When you did reach out and ask for help, was that hard to do?
Um, it's definitely a learning curve. So this summer, again, something new this summer was having an employee. So that's definitely a learning curve. I feel like last year was a learning curve in the sense, like, I had to learn to grow food on a bigger scale, which I hadn't done before. Like, I had just kind of grown vegetables randomly, didn't care when I needed to harvest them or anything like that. And then this summer was like a business learning curve, and more marketing and trying to get customers and building a customer base, and reaching out to restaurants, that kind of stuff. So I feel like this is a nice time to have this interview because I'm finishing off that year with all of this, like, new information. But yeah, I think that sorry, I can't remember the question now. I've talked too much.
Was it difficult for you to ask for help?
Oh, was it difficult? Yes. So with the employee, that was definitely a lot of help, but I think I piled so much on this year with the events and building that space, building the farm's wash station and everything. It was nice to have an employee, but I feel like I could have had another one. And so it's cool because, again, as I'm building that customer base, I've built a network of people that are interested in helping. So I do have more people to call on when I do need help, and more people just offering to help, which is amazing. So I feel like I'm getting more used to asking for help, but that in itself is hard when you're running everything. It's hard to kind of be like, well, do I have the time to tell you exactly how I want it to go? So it's kind of like a balancing act because, you have to have the time to tell them how you want it, but you also don't have the time and you need someone else to do it. So, yeah, I think I'm okay asking for help. It's just, yeah, kind of that balancing act.
Well, you mentioned hiring somebody, and I think that when you run around and do everything yourself and everything is in your control, and you mentioned, you know that you have to do X amount to get this much money to pay these bills. And, you're responsible enough to pick up more work in other areas so that you can make it all work. And then you bring an employee into that where you're responsible to pay them. And so how did that feel for you?
That was scary. That was really scary. Last year, it's not like I had a specific goal in mind of like how much I wanted to make or how much I needed to make. My startup costs last year were pretty small, so this year was me taking on a lot more costs, especially with the employee. So I was definitely scared and scared that I wasn't going to be able to make it work. But finishing the year now, I feel more confident. I don't know, the more that I do this entrepreneurial stuff, the more confidence I'm getting and the more kind of attitude of like, we'll make it work no matter what. Yeah, I think that it was definitely scary, but I'm glad that I did it. And now I just see how much opportunity there is in hiring someone because you start realizing, whoa, yeah, the way someone explained to me is that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals like 3. Like two people working, you get more done than just double. You get like triple done. And so I'm realizing that like how much a difference one person can make. So if there was 3 of us next year, I have to keep that in mind too. So it's interesting kind of coming to the end of this season and looking at next season is, should I, yeah, there's just so many decisions, but I think that it was a great risk to take to get an employee. That's what I'll say.
Thank you so much for watching. But we're not finished yet. Sophie had so much thought-provoking information and things to say. There's a part 2. So stay tuned for my interview with Sophie coming soon.